Hi, Scorpio rising sign. Here is your weekly forecast starting on the 8th until the 14th of June. So, Scorpio, this week is a massive mental, professional, and relational game changer. Uranus and Urania are kind of like sparking those electrical storms in your eighth house of deep psychology, shared finances, investments. Why that spectacular Venus Jupiter conjunction creates an absolute jackpot of luck, visibility, and abundance in your ninth house, the house of global reach, publishing, and higher wisdom. Meanwhile, Uranus creates that critical evolutionary bottleneck across your fifth and 11th house axis, forcing you to shift your energy away from people pleasing large crowds or step into your raw, independent creative power. But let's break it down step by step. So, asteroid Urania enters Gemini and it will make a conjunction to Uranus. So, that's a psychological or financial lightning bolt. It might be a sudden flash of absolute genius hits your financial backhand or your deep mindset. So you might experience a sudden breakthrough regarding how you automate your clients' payout, structure your taxes, manage an investment. This alignment actually can break old, rigid psychological blocks regarding money, giving you kind of like a fast strategy to achieve total financial sovereignty. Now, Urania represents discoveries, and therefore you can discover really some old patterns of trust issues and money blockages as well. And with Uranus, you can decide that I'm going to be breaking free from those. Now, we really love that Venus and Jupiter conjunction on 25 degree of Cancer, which is falling into your ninth house. That's the horizon jackpot archetype there. That's the most benevolent, expansive alignment of the year. What's the ninth house? Broadcasting, international reach, publishing, wisdom, opinions, travels, and relocation. So that's a green light to expand your intellectual territory. So if you have been planning to launch a major masterclass, publish a booklet, stream a video to a wider audience, or deal with international clients, basically the universe is turning on that massive amplifier. This does require sudden bold action though. So you have to reach out. You know, the ninth house is the house of opportunities. Opportunities not just land on your lap because it's falling onto Aries dwad. You're going to have to be able to reach out to them. Your voice, your philosophy, your educational materials can become quite irresistible. You can become somehow magnetic as well towards others, and then you might start seeing that people are respecting your work even more. Now we do have got the Saturn and Pallas Athene conjunction happening in Aries, but being squared by Mercury. So Mercury currently is going through your ninth, while the Saturn Pallas conjunction is happening in your sixth house. Now, the Saturn Pallas conjunction kicks off actually a crucial three-part tactical strategy to restructure your everyday labor, routines, or client delivery over the next 7 months. You're kind of like weaponizing logic to build bulletproof systems, daily systems, boundary protocols. But Mercury squaring it from the ninth house means an over intellectualized worry about your big picture or a desire to over explain your methods might try to clutter your mind. So the universe demands you ignore the background noise and focus purely on discipline, data driven daily execution. We have got Hopi entering Cancer as well this week, another ninth house activation. So that protective instincts shifts entirely toward your personal philosophy, your intellectual property, your unique worldview. Maybe you feel that duty to defend your wisdom, to stand up for justice as well. Let's say to protect your digital content from plagiarism or distortion, and draw kind of like a hard perimeter around your absolute truth. Maybe you find that someone is treating you unjust and you don't wish to kind of swallow that up anymore. And then you are going to be letting your opinion to them. We also have got Venus making a square to Chiron before it moves into the sign of Leo, which is your 10th house. So the morning brings pretty much of a brief final healing crisis regarding vulnerability about your voice or a fear of being misunderstood or the fear of even getting sick. But once clear, the energy breaks wide open. Venus entering Leo shifts your focus entirely to that highest professional stage. Now, it's so easy to think with Venus and Chiron square that, let's say, we are not smart enough to leave our job, that we have to get stuck as a waiter or, certain type of positions. But then Venus moves into Leo and it says, I can become visible. I can step into that professional stage. I can step into that royal high visibility phase where I am going to demand to lead. I'm going to demand to be respected, showcase that I'm an expert. I'm going to show something on camera. I'm going to accept public applause. And maybe that's what you have to learn with Venus and Chiron square, that there's no need to be afraid of kind of like being a star. And then that could lead to a professional win. Now, Moon goes out of bound on 4 degree of Gemini this week as well until the 16th. And it's very interesting because it goes through the out of bound period starts on that Uranus Urania series triple conjunction. So actually, this can become a bit of a rogue financial flaw. Maybe your passive income streams, client communications, or emotional baseline kind of hit an unpredictable, highly erratic wave. Or all of a sudden, you can win money, you can gain money, you can even make mistakes with money as well, because this is a highly erratic wave. So stay flexible, leave buffer time for back-end digital tools, trust the unconventional shortcuts that open up, trust even your intuition also. Because Uranus and Urania are together very, very intuitive. But of course, Uranus is making a square to the nodes this week. And Uranus and Urania sitting together at that peak of your eighth house of shared resources, deep intimacy, contracts. From this very intense psychological house, Uranus throws that high voltage 90 degrees square to the lunar nodes, which are locked on your social and creative axis. The 11th house of large networks, audience expectations, group dynamics, that's where we've got the South node, versus that fifth house of personal creative power, independent branding, solo projects, and the house of joy, really. So this is a massive evolutionary crossroad between your public audience network and your raw independent solo project or creative joy. And that is all triggered by finances, investments, even contractual agreements. So the South Node in your 11th house represents that comfortable but draining trap, the habit of compromising your true message to cater to the crowd, watering down your raw power to fit into a community or network, or letting that endless noisy opinions of your audience, your friends, dictate a certain type of business or financial decisions in your life. But then Uranus hits this with that live electrical line in the house of contracts and passive revenue. So a sudden shift occurs, such as a sudden change in a joint financial agreement or an unexpected adjustment in client contracts or a breakdown in a shared platform. This disruption is a deliberate cosmic setup to break your codependency on the approval of the crowds and the fans and so forth, or even the friends. And maybe when a financial or your financial or a contract landscape shifts unexpectedly, you can no longer afford to play nice within that group. You are forced to choose a fifth house north node. The universe is demanding that you pull your energy away from general community noise and focus entirely on your own creative power. So maybe you are being pushed to launch your independent solo projects. You don't have to wait I don't know, for a friend of yours to give you the money. Maybe that Uranus, you're going to decide that I'm going to take up a loan and take out a loan, for example, to create a business meta. Maybe it's like you are going to be creating or launching this unapologetic brand, your creative genius vision, basically, and make your own joy non-negotiable. Maybe what actually goes also down here is that you have always gone with the flow, and then you did something that your friends wanted to do for fun, and then this is telling you to choose something that you would like to do solo. That is a part of you, something that is giving you fun. But of course, this Uranus is also about wanting to make money as well. And maybe you are sitting down and trying to come up ways of being able to make that money. And therefore, hopefully, your creative fire is going to get switched on. And you're not doing anymore something that others want you to do or the company wants you to do. It is also about you getting tired of making money for others. So I can imagine that there is a collaboration, a group project, or a client platform, and then somehow the terms are changing, and instead of deciding to work harder or to please the network or the company, you make this radical change and you decide to launch a solo service, an exclusive digital download, or a media product. And I want to get the financial control 100% back in my own hands. Because we have got that financial shift that forces you to look at your business model. You realize you have been catering to a low tier audience expectation, for example. So maybe you drop somehow the group think mentality, and then you change your personal brand, you change the way you approach life, basically, and then you potentially you launch something. Why launching? The launching really comes from Mercury being in the ninth house, and the ninth house is something to do with launching. But a little bit more about that Venus and Jupiter. It's a great time for you to create content if you want to. Maybe you have been sitting on, let's say, an educational booklet, a deep, like a topic of writing, a webinar series, a master class curriculum, or simply just a creative project. And this is asking you to hit that publish button to announce something to your audience, because your voice can carry that really like strength to it, that authentic wisdom. Your message can scale effortlessly. And therefore, sales could be coming out of that, especially when Mercury is going to be hitting Jupiter as well, which is going to be happening only the following week, though. Maybe a client for afar or someone seeking your kind of like expertise. So they are seeking you out. And potentially this might be something that brings you cash. Because Jupiter also rules your second house as well. So Mercury is going to be running into that. So I would broadcast your work on a more massive scale. That's what I would do. Or I would choose solo creative power over crowd pleasing. Or I would even create a system, a bulletproof daily system. We can really lean into that Saturn and Pallas in your sixth house. And it's about using cold logic to structure your daily schedule, to automate your, client delivery, shut down workplace, kind of micro distractions. Of course, I could talk to you about health as well. And Mercury squaring it, this might be telling me that you are a little bit anxious. You are worried about finances. But Saturn and Mars says, I'm going to come up with a strategy. I'm going to work it out. Don't water down your raw truth to fit in. Don't fall into that 11th house south node of playing small and adapting your message just to keep your social network, your friends, your audience kind of comfortable and nice. And we all have got the tendency to do that. Let's be honest about that. And Saturn Pallas also says that we have got a bit of a work stress going on. And that makes us emotional with that Mercury squaring from Cancer. But it also says that we just need to keep the day-to-day business communication strictly clinical and organized, and we shouldn't let temporary logistic details derail from our bigger picture. So, good luck, Scorpio rising, and I will see you in my next forecast. Take care. Bye bye.